Hello, my name is Sarah Nelson. I'm the celebrant at Moments 2, and as I promised on my social media, I'm sitting down to talk with Wendy, who's a funeral director. And we've got some questions, and well, I'll let Wendy introduce herself first. So off you go, Wendy.
Okay. Hello, my name's Wendy Green. I'm a funeral director and I've been for the past 16 years. I work for a company called R Banks and Son, based in Wigan. We've got a few branches throughout the Wigan area, and we also hold Edwards Funerals, which is in the Wigan area as well. I've worked for them for the last 5 years, and before that I worked for Dignity Funerals.
How did you what training did you get for being a funeral director?
Training on the job, really. It's one of those jobs you can do diplomas and things like that, and do all your exams, but really you learn to do it doing the job.
Yeah.
I trained as a funeral arranger first. I did that for about a year, which gives you an insight into what arranging funerals is, and then stepped up to being a trainee funeral director, and then got taken on as a funeral director. And as I say, it's training on the job. You learn the job doing it.
Okay. Can I just ask what's the difference between a funeral arranger and a funeral director?
Yeah, funeral arranger is someone who's based in the office. So families will come in to the office and arrange with that person. And that person does what the job says. They arrange the funeral, they liaise with ministers, crematoria, cemeteries, so on. The funeral director also does that job. They can go out to families or families to come in, but then the funeral director goes out on the day of the funeral and conducts the funeral as well as arranging.
Okay, all right. And how did you get into being a funeral director? What brought you into that line of work?
It's something I always wanted to do, really, from being at school. I'd say probably from being about 13, 14, I'd always fancied working in the funeral industry. But at that time, you didn't have the big companies like the Co-op and Dignity. Everywhere was a family-run business, so it's very difficult to get into them. So from leaving school, I did part-time jobs and so on, and had children. So that was another stop to my career. And then it was by chance, really. I applied for a job as a funeral arranger part-time, and was lucky enough to get that. So I started there doing just 20 hours a week, and then carried on from there, became a funeral director after that.
So it's just a matter of getting you in. Yeah.
Get a foot in the door. Yeah. I mean, the big companies do take a lot of staff on now. Which is better, but family firms were always just family. It was very difficult then.
Yeah, because I suppose you have to inherit the job as opposed to Okay, so I've got a few general funeral questions to ask you. There's lots of adverts on the television talking about funeral plans and how much the average funeral is, and their averages seem to range from about £4,000 to over £6,000, which is a big difference. It's quite weird if they're all getting the same information.
Yeah.
So for you, what's the average funeral cost that you know of?
Well, I mean, based on our prices, if you were looking at something, say, for instance, having a service at the crematorium with a minister or celebrant, a hearse, one limousine, viewing in Chapel of Rest, you'd be looking with our charges around 3,400 for something like that. All funeral directors' costs are different, although your disbursements are always the same, and that's such as your cemetery fees, your flowers, your minister fee. The professional fees for a funeral director vary from company to company. It also depends on what you want for the funeral as well. Cremations are generally cheaper.
Okay.
That's the cheaper option. Burials can be expensive if you've got to buy a new plot. Okay. If you already have a plot, that's fine. It works out roughly the same as a cremation. But if you've got to buy a new plot, you can easily add another £1,000 onto the funeral costs. A lot of funeral directors as well, us included, do what's called a direct cremation, where there is no service. the deceased is collected from the hospital, nursing home, wherever they may have passed away. They're held with the funeral director until the day of the funeral. They're taken to the crematorium. There is no service, and then the ashes are collected for the family afterwards. They're becoming a lot more popular now because of the pandemic, because of restrictions on funeral numbers. We've had quite a few of those recently. Okay. And there are some companies that only offer that option.
Yes.
And if that's what people want, that's fine. Some people want the whole shebang with horses and a fleet of limousines and everything. Some people don't. Some people just say, no, nothing, just cremate me and get the ashes. Okay. Everyone's different.
I suppose, especially with the restrictions we've had, and I know they're slowly lifting, but the idea of having to choose who can come and who can't come, and people stay outside the building.
Yeah, that's been very difficult for a lot of families. There are a lot of families we've dealt with where the big families, they've got, I mean, if you've got a family where, say for instance, there's 6 siblings and they've all got partners and they've all got children, and you're limited, for instance, at Wigan crematorium, you're limited to 20 people. That doesn't even cover immediate family for some families.
Yeah.
So it's been very difficult, but hopefully, fingers crossed, we might see numbers coming up in the next few weeks.
Yeah. Given the ceremony as well, with people sitting socially distanced, you don't have that sort of camaraderie, sort of like that togetherness.
No.
Sometimes things that the family have told you that the family find funny or amusing stories, they just don't. There's not that nudge. That's funny. It's just that.
That's it. Seeing families sat apart, it's been very difficult. I mean, there was a thing doing the rounds on social media last year where, I don't know if you saw it, where the crematorium attendant moved the chairs and made someone sit on their own. That's not something I've come across. No. The crematoriums we deal with have been very good like that. They're happy for people to pull chairs together if they're in the same household.
Yeah, that's what
it's been a tough time for everyone.
Yes, it has. When you were talking about how different funeral directors have different fees for themselves, would it be advisable for people to perhaps get different quotes or go to different funeral directors?
Definitely. A lot more people are doing that now. Back in the day, I think people thought it was inappropriate to get quotes from funeral directors. It's not. A lot of people do it. We get a lot of calls from people and they say, we're just looking for a price for a funeral. We are ringing round. That's great. Do that. We definitely recommend do that. And if you're getting a quote as well, ask about extra charges, because the funeral director will tell you the charges for the coffin, the cars, the church, the crematorium, things like that. But ask, will they charge you extra for dressing the person in their own clothes? Will they charge you for using their pallbearers if you don't have your own? Do they charge you for having chapel visits in the evening? Things like that. Check on all the hidden costs that they won't give you initially.
Yeah, because I wouldn't have thought to ask for those things. I'd have just assumed they came in the price I was given.
Not always. Some funeral directors will charge they'll either charge for dressing the deceased in their own clothes, or they'll charge to provide a gown or a shroud. So always check, ask for the extra cost as well.
Okay, that's good advice. Yeah. And I think when I'm talking to clients or writing a blog to say how you choose a celebrant, I try to emphasize that you should find someone who clicks with you, so sort of
course
safe with.
I'd also advise people as well, don't just ring the funeral directors, go and visit them if you've got time. Go and ring and make an appointment. Ask, can you go in and see someone? Get a written quote from them. Ask if you can have a look around the premises. Ask if you can see the chapels, the rooms where the person's going to be resting. And that also, as you say, that gives the person an idea of who they're going to be working with, and they can decide then, is this person right for me? Will they do what I want them to do?
Yeah.
So it is a good idea to go in and meet them as well as ring them.
Yeah, because it might be, I'll pay that little bit extra because I feel confident and
of course,
happy with this person.
Yeah. You get a feel for the place. It's like, we always think it's like if you walk into somebody's home, do you feel comfortable in there? it's like that with us. If a family comes into our premises, do they feel comfortable there? Do they like it? Is it clean? Is it tidy? Is it homely? Can they see the rest of the staff? Can they interact with everyone? Meet the reception staff? Do you like them? Are they personable? Are they going to look after you?
Yeah, because it's such an emotional time. Plus, you're having to get your head around so many things that you don't normally do, like
Of course.
arranging the funeral. What do I need to do?
Yeah.
A lot of admin for that person's life. So it's quite a lot of organising at a time when your head's not necessarily in an organising space.
Yeah, that's right. But yeah, get a feel for the place and the people that work there, and see if you're comfortable with them.
Yeah, I think that's really important.
Yeah.
This is something that confuses me a lot. So again, with the advertising on television, we've got lots of insurance companies pushing their funeral insurance plans, and then I've heard of prepaid plans which seem to be pushed by the cremation only companies.
Yeah.
So what's the difference between an insurance plan and a prepaid plan, and is there a better option?
Yeah. For me personally, I would recommend a prepaid funeral plan rather than an insurance policy. With a prepaid plan, you're paying for exactly what you want. You're saying, I want 2 cars, I want an oak coffin, I want a spray of flowers for the coffin, I want order of service, and you pay for your plan based on your needs. With an insurance policy, the insurance company will say, right, you've got this figure that is payable on death. It might be £5,000. That's great at the moment. That £5,000 will cover a funeral at the moment. But if the person who has that policy lives for another 15, 20 years, that £5,000 is not going to cover the funeral cost, because there'll be way more than that in 15, 20 years. So I would always recommend a plan. Right, a policy can be, the monthly payments will be cheaper than if you were taking a plan, but with a plan, you get back what you've paid in. Most funeral plans will guarantee completely the funeral director's charges. So the cost of the coffin, the cost of the cars, professional fees, everything like that. Disbursements, the funeral plan will probably pay a contribution towards those. Now that contribution will rise with the rate of inflation. So say at the time you've paid £1,000 towards your disbursements, in another 20 years, the plan will have increased and make that disbursement figure a little bit more to cover the increase in prices over the years. Some plans, depending on who you take them out with, guarantee everything. To be honest, that's a bit rare now. There's usually a little. If the family want to add flowers to the plan, they'd have to pay extra for that. If they want to add order of service, they'd have to pay extra for that. But plans are the way forward. Some companies do set price funeral plans. They'll do, say, a basic funeral plan, a middle of the road funeral plan, and a high-end funeral plan, and you choose based on your needs. Us personally, our banks, we do the Golden Charter funeral plan, and it's a bespoke funeral plan. You tell us exactly what you want, and we work the costings out on what you've given us. So we itemise everything separately. So you might pay a little more doing it that way, but you're paying for what you want rather than what you don't want.
Yeah. So with the plan, you decide what parts of the funeral you want, the type of coffin, the type of how many limos, cremation, burial, and then that's all added up and then divided over a set number of years, like a mortgage.
Yeah, you can do that. You can either pay the plan in full, you can pay at the time, or you can take them out over instalments. Just be aware though, the longer you take the plan, most plans add interest onto monthly payments. So if you take the plan out over 12 months, you'll just pay the plan price and nothing else. If you take it out over 10 years, you'll pay some interest on that.
Yeah. And I suppose if you take it over a longer time, there is a little bit of a risk that you might die before that and not have
Yeah, well, the thing is funeral plan companies they'll have a set figure. If you die before you pay the plan off, as long as you've paid so much into it, the family can pay the remaining balance.
Oh, sorry.
Or say, sadly, some people take a plan out and unfortunately pass away within a couple of years. If that's the case, the plan company can refund any monies that have been paid, and the family just pay for the funeral as they would normally.
Well, that's good, because I get the impression from the insurance things you just keep paying until a certain point, and you might pay a lot more. Or
yes,
if you do die,
right.
if you stop paying, you don't get that money back, do you?
Exactly. Yeah, that's right. It's, as I said, insurance policies work out a lot cheaper, but in the long run, you get back a lot less than you've paid in, and it's not guaranteed to cover your funeral cost.
Yeah. And I suppose you don't also get to plan what you want ahead of time. You just...
Well, that's it. No. With a funeral plan, everything's there in writing, so your family know what you want. They know your wishes. With an insurance plan, we've still got to sit down with the family and say, right, what coffin do you want? How many cars do you want? What flowers do you want? And they've got to make all those decisions themselves.
Yeah. Right. So I think the plan does sound better, because a lot of the thought processes are taken out of the family's hands. They just need to make sure it's paid for, make sure it's happening.
That's it. Yeah.
So if when it comes to planning the funeral, so we've got if someone's died and I come to you, I've got a few questions about this. So I come to your branch, what sort of things should I bring with me to start the funeral plan going?
So the most important thing to bring with you is someone else. Bring another set of ears, another set of eyes. It's always good to have someone there with you. They might ask questions that you haven't thought of. They'll pick up on things that the funeral director tells you that you're not listening to. Always do that if you can. I mean, understandably, some people are on their own, they don't have anyone. If that's the case, so be it, but it's always good to have somebody there with you. Bring any documents as well relating to the deceased. If you have any grave papers, for instance, if you've got those are a good help to us. It saves a job having to try and trace where the grave is and who the owner is and things like that. If you don't have those, it doesn't matter. We can do some background checks and find out those details. Bring a notepad and pen, because the funeral director will tell you all kinds of things, and it kind of goes in one and out of the other. So it's handy to have something to write on. Just scribble notes. You'll probably forget what they mean when you get home if you write them in shorthand. And there again, that's the good thing for bringing someone else with you as well. They can prompt you.
Yeah.
We would normally say bring the certificate from the registrar, but in these times at the moment, the families aren't being issued with that. The registrars are sending it directly to us. When someone registers the death, the registrar issues a green disposal certificate. That's for the funeral director to send off to the cemetery's office or the church if it's a burial. And as I said, normally the family will bring that to us, but at the moment they're not doing that. We're getting it by email.
All right.
Bring some clothes as well. If you want the deceased person to wear their own clothes, you could bring those with you.
Okay.
People do forget. They'll just bring a dress or a pair of trousers and a shirt. Bring underwear as well. People say, oh, do I need to bring my dad's underpants and his socks? Yes, it's what he would normally wear. Bring them. Bring them. Whatever they would normally put on, bring it with you. If there are any personal items as well that you want to put with the deceased, letters from the children, things like that, bring those as well.
Yeah, because I've placed things on the coffin that children or people have brought with them. So one man was renowned for getting lost, even on the simplest of journeys. And so the children, I think they're only like 5 and 6 years old, so they'd drawn him a map to make sure he could get to heaven and not get lost. So that was incredibly sweet.
Yeah, little personal things like that, they're always nice.
Yeah. What sort of things should I ask? So maybe if you could give us like some key questions that I should ask you when I come
Yeah.
to plan a funeral.
Yeah. Firstly, ask the funeral director what services do they offer? What can they provide for you? Can they, if you want a horse-drawn carriage, can they provide that? If you want flowers, do they work with a local florist? Can they provide you with order of service leaflets? Things like that. Just check what they will and what they won't do. Most funeral directors will provide everything, but some may not. Some may say, well, no, we don't do order of service. You have to do that yourself. Ask about cost. That's very important. Get a breakdown of the total cost from the funeral director. They should be able to give you an estimate based on what you've told them. If you say, I want this, I want that, and they can do that with you while you're there. And then if there's anything that you want to take off there, then say so. If you've originally planned for 2 limousines, but it's too expensive, then say, well, actually, no, we'll just have the 1 car. If it's less than you thought and you want to add things on. There's so many different questions that people ask. Ask as well about viewing the deceased, embalming of the deceased. A lot of people worry about how's mum going to look. Ask about that. If you want to know what happens, some people embalming, oh no, I don't want to know. Some people do. Some people have asked me what exactly happens. If you want to ask that, ask, and they'll be quite happy to tell you. Ask if you can have a look round, if you can see the chapels. We've had people say, can we see your cars? Can we have a look at your cars? What cars do you have? We have Jaguars, but some have Mercedes. Just any questions that come into your head, ask. It's a good idea as well to jot a few things down before you go to the funeral director. Have a little list of questions, and we'll answer any. People very often say to me, I know this is a stupid question, but it's not a stupid question. If it's something that you need to ask, then ask.
Yeah, it seems like you're very aware that people coming in are coming from a place of not really knowing very much, and you're prepared to explain everything straightforwardly. Because sometimes when you do something regularly, you forget that the other person doesn't know what you're talking about. So it sounds very good that you explain everything in such detail.
That's it, because most people have not done this before. They have no idea what's involved in arranging a funeral, and that's my job to explain that to them. And I'll answer any questions, however silly they might think it is. As I said, people will ask about clothing. Well, do I need to bring underwear? Yes, unless your dad went commando, yes, bring his underwear. We just tell the families, ask what you want to ask. It doesn't matter how obscure you think the question is, we'll answer it.
Yeah, that's good. And that, I suppose that will, when you first go and see funeral directors, you'll know that if you ask questions then and they're a bit hesitant perhaps answering, you're like, that's not the funeral director for me.
Of course.
So this is the bit more detail. So what happens what happens to the body now? So if I've come in, I've planned the funeral, I've said that the deceased at the hospital, what happens? What do you do now?
Okay, so using that instance, if the person that's passed away is at hospital in the mortuary there, we'll liaise with the registrars. They'll send us a certificate once the family have registered, and then we'll contact the mortuary then and make an appointment to go and bring that person into our care. So then they'll be brought to us. If the family have asked for viewing in chapel and embalming, that will be done. They're on site. If the family have brought their own clothes, we have people that will do the dressing and preparation of the person. We'd normally ask a family to bring a photograph in if they've got one, or email me a picture or WhatsApp, because unless we know that family personally, we don't know how that person's supposed to look. So it's a good idea to have a visual of them. We'll do the hair, we'll paint the nails, we'll put makeup on, we'll clean shave men, we'll trim the moustache, whatever needs doing. Everything's done on site there. We have a few chapels of rest throughout the Wigan area. Everything's done at our Pemberton branch. That's where we have the mortuary and all the facilities. And we'll explain that to people. Say if someone comes into our branch in Up Holland, we'll explain to them that your loved one's now at Pemberton, where we're doing all the preparation. Once they're ready, we'll bring them here to this chapel of rest for you to view.
Yeah.
And then we just get on with actually arranging the funeral then, contacting the crematorium, the cemetery, the celebrant, the priest, whatever the family have asked us to do, we do everything. The only thing the family need to do is liaise with the minister or celebrant, whether that be via Zoom or a home meeting or telephone, email, whatever. But we just get on and we do everything. We do all the administration, we do all the liaising with ministers and things like that. We can put obituaries in the newspaper, we'll order flowers, we can arrange orders of service. And we just keep the family informed. That's the main point. Keep the family informed of where you're up to. Give them a call. You don't have to ring them every day because that would be annoying for the family, but just keep them up to speed with everything and just say, this is where we're up to. I've contacted the celebrant, she'll contact you. I've arranged a crematorium, the service is such a date, such a time. And other services as well, like webcast, live streams of the service. We arrange that for a lot of people, especially now where people can't attend the funeral. And then once everything's in place, that's it then, that the family can kind of sit back a bit and think about things for the service, then what they want to include in the service, music, readings, eulogy, things like that.
Okay. Yeah. All right, that's good. That's good to know. So when people come to you, what are their main worries that they seem to have when they're trying to arrange a funeral? Or is there a pattern to what people are worried about?
Yeah, I mean, cost is a worry for a lot of people. In most cases, unless the deceased person has been very poorly, in most cases, a funeral's unexpected. It's an expense that you're not expecting to pay. Which is a worry for a lot of people. A lot of people don't have £4,000 tucked away in the bank to pay out for a funeral, and they think, oh, how am I going to pay this? What am I going to do? If the person who's responsible for paying the funeral bill is receiving benefits, we'd advise them to call the Department of Work and Pensions, get in touch with them straight away and see if you're eligible to apply for help with the cost of the funeral.
Okay.
It depends on what benefits you receive and at what rate you receive them, but the DWP should be able to advise you on that.
Right.
Some funeral directors as well will offer payment options or offer funeral cost finance. We do that. What we'll do is we'll put the family onto a finance company that they deal with. The finance company pay the funeral and then the family pay them so much a month or however they want to do it. There are options for simpler funerals as well for people that don't have money to throw away. So they could opt for a direct cremation, or they could just opt for a simple service where it's just the hearse, they provide their own transport, we meet at the crematorium, they arrange their own flowers and things like that, keep it simple. So cost is a big worry for a lot of people. People do also worry as well about how do I sort this out? How do I organise this funeral? Don't worry about that. That's my job. That's for me to do. I'll do the organising. I'll tell you what you need to do and what you don't need to do. They're getting a bit of a panic that they're not doing things right. There's no right or wrong way to arrange a funeral. Every person is different. Every family is different. Every funeral director is different. There is a general way that we go about it, but we do what the families want us to do. They worry as well about, am I doing what my loved one would want me to do? Well, you know them best. You know what they would want. Unless they've had a plan or left you instructions, you do what you think they would want. they worry about all kinds of things. They worry about other family members as well.
Yeah.
Think, well,
Yeah.
I've been left to arrange this, but our Julie doesn't want to do this. And well, get your Julie involved then.
Yeah.
Talk about it between yourselves. We do unfortunately get families that do fall out over funeral arrangements. My own family included. It does happen. It does happen. There's a lot going on in people's minds when someone passes away and they've got to arrange a funeral, and everything is a worry at that time.
Everything becomes heightened, doesn't it? And,
it does, yeah.
And it feels quite urgent.
Another thing that people get concerned about as well is viewing the deceased person.
Yeah.
Thinking, should I or should I not? How will they look? Will they look better than they was in hospital? Will they look worse? And that's why we ask if you can provide us a photograph, and then we've got an idea. Some people,
I think that'd be a worry of mine. Yeah.
Yeah, some people do look better if they've been very, very poorly and passed away after a long illness. They can generally look better than they did. People say they look more peaceful. The lines have gone from the face and so on.
Yeah.
But that's not the case for everyone. Some people come in, and I've done it myself with my own family members. They look so different. It's a completely personal choice. It's up to that person whether they want to view the deceased or not. Some people feel they have to. You don't have to.
No.
It's your choice. If you don't want to, you don't have. Don't feel bad if you don't want to. People think, oh, it's the last chance I'll get to see Mum. If you don't want to, don't. Remember her as she was when they were happy and healthy.
Yeah. That's the sort of vibe I give to my families when I meet them as well. Sort of, if you're in charge of organising the funeral, you make the choices. Choose the songs that you think were important to them. Don't worry about other people's opinions or your beliefs of what other people's opinions are going to be.
Exactly.
You're just trying to remember that person the best way possible, and if they're into Black Sabbath or hardcore house, then that's the music you choose. You choose something that shows them in their favourite way.
People worry as well about where you mentioned the music, about what's appropriate for a funeral. It's what's appropriate for your funeral. Obviously, if you're having a mass in a Catholic church, you can't be playing Lady Gaga as you're coming out and things like that. You have to respect the rules of the church. But at the crematorium, they have a wide range of music. All the crematoriums now have a music download system where the funeral director can access that system and book music that the family have chosen. And it's what you feel is appropriate. If a family have got someone like yourself, a celebrant rather than a priest, then it's a case of sort of anything goes, really. You can choose what music you want. You can choose what readings you want. Obviously, if it's a religious service, it's different then. I've had services where the family have had a Catholic priest doing the service, and the family have wanted a particular piece of music that maybe wasn't appropriate, and the priest has just gone, okay, well, at the end of the service, I'll go outside, and then the family can have that music played. So it works. It does work.
Oh, so that's good news, I think. And I think it would hopefully give people confidence to say, this is how we want it to be. This is the choice of music. This is what maybe the colour of the coffin or decoration or
you've got to make it personal. That in the past, funerals were funerals. They were a morbid ceremony. It was a celebration of the death of that person. No, it's not. No, we see funerals as a celebration of that person's life, and you make it personal. As personal as you want to. Include what you want to. What the person that's passed away, include what they wanted as well. They might want particular flowers, or, as you say, particular music, or particular photographs in the orders of service. And
Okay. Is there anything else you haven't been able to say but you'd like to say now about funerals or funeral directors?
Funeral directors,
Put you on the spot.
and I know one of the questions you'd put to me a bit ago was, what's an average day for a funeral director?
Yeah.
There isn't one. Every day is different. Although we're doing the same job, we're going out conducting funerals, we're meeting families, we're doing the same admin. Every family is different, every deceased is different, every crematorium is different, every celebrant, every minister is different. There's no average day. Some days are really busy, you don't seem to have enough hours in the day. Some days are a little bit quieter where you can catch up on things and get things done. One thing I would say to any other funeral directors that are watching this blog, or any funeral arrangers, anyone that's involved with families in any way and sorting out funerals, one thing you have to remember, which I'm sticking to now since we've been in the pandemic, is keep work and home life separate. Don't take your work home and don't take your family life to work. I've only just recently, in the last couple of months, started leaving my work phone at home unless I'm on call, because I've constantly got my work phone in my bag, and I'd be emailing people at 10 o'clock at night, or checking people's order of service at 9 o'clock on a Sunday morning and things like that. And then I got to a point where I thought, no, leave it. You've got to. It is. People say, "Oh, it must be a difficult job." It's not a job; it's a vocation. To some extent, your life revolves around your job. When you're a funeral director, you've got to make sacrifices in your personal life. I'm quite fortunate; my children have grown up; they're adults now. But for any funeral directors or arrangers that have got small children, and I mean yourself, Sarah, with your job as well, it's difficult trying to juggle that. Going to work, doing a full-time job, having to take some work home with you as well, and you've got children running around, you've got a house to tidy, you've got teas to make, you've got washing to do, you've got kids to bath. It is hard work. It is hard work. So try and switch off from work when you come home if you can, but you can't always.
I think that's important for everybody, really, to make sure you've got that split. Have the option of leaving work phones at work and work paperwork and stuff at work. That's take that option and make sure you have that space at home to do home things.
And things to remember as well for families arranging funerals, they must remember that they're not alone. Your funeral director's there for you. There's always someone on the end of the phone. You can always pop in. Most funeral directors like myself have a work phone, so I'll give the families my telephone number, my email address. And I know that there may be little old ladies that are sitting awake at 2 o'clock in the morning worrying about the wording for the newspaper. It's get in touch. We're here for you. And also to families as well, it's arranging the funeral, everything's your choice. You can be guided by your funeral director, but don't expect them to tell you what you should and shouldn't do. It's your choice. Do what you want, request what you want. I mean, in the olden days, the old school funeral directors, they would get commission on what coffins they sold, so they would advise people to buy this coffin, because but we don't. We'll just open the brochure and say to the family, there are the coffins, there are the prices, which one do you like the look of? And a lot of people will say, oh, just give me the cheapest, I'm not paying all that money when it's being burned. That's fine. That's what you want. I would advise that myself anyway. I think it's silly to be paying thousands for big American style caskets. Ridiculous. Go for cardboard.
Like going into space. Okay.
And that's the thing, again, though, with people's choices. Ask the funeral director, what choices do you have? If they give you a coffin brochure and it's just 4, 5, 6 wooden coffins, ask them, do they have wicker coffins? Do they have personalised pattern coffins? Do they have cardboard ones? The flowers, if they show you a flower brochure and there's something that's not in there that you want, ask them about it. It's your choice. You tell them what you want.
Yeah, because I think with florists nowadays, they can create amazing displays of pretty much anything. Yeah,
They can. Yeah, they can. Yeah, and there again with the florist, most funeral directors will deal with a local florist. They'll order directly from them. If you want something personal, ask the funeral director which florist do they use, and go to that florist and chat with them and say, I'm arranging the funeral with such a funeral director, but I want to choose my flowers here with you. And they'll do that. Our florist is happy to do that. He's happy for families to go in and choose what they want, and then he sends us the invoice, so it goes on the funeral bill.
Okay, yeah. Because you can have like words, but I've seen like family shields. I've seen a packet of cigarettes done in flowers.
Amazing pint of Guinness.
Yeah. So whatever your person was interested in or loved, you can have that in flower form. So that's really beautiful.
Yeah.
Okay, so as we're coming to the end, I was wondering if there's maybe a top 3 or a top 5 things that people should remember if they have to plan a funeral, like key points.
Yeah, I mean, some of the points I've already said. Remember one thing: you're not alone. The funeral director's there for you. That's it. And again, remember, all the choices are yours. You decide what you want, and don't be steered. I mean, most funeral directors won't steer you, but there might be some that do. You choose if there's something that you don't want. For instance, a lot of funeral directors, myself included, will page the hearse, will walk in front of the hearse from the person's home to the end of the street or whatever. Some people don't like that. They see it as old-fashioned. So if there's something like that you don't want, tell them. Just say, I don't want the funeral director walking in front. I don't want the funeral director to wear a top hat. It's that's it. Remember, it's your choice. And also, again, as I said before, remember, there's no right or wrong way to arrange a funeral. You do it how you want to do. If you want something simple, you arrange something simple. If you want all bells and whistles, fine, you can have that as well. And also, don't let other people's opinions sway you. A lot of people won't go for the standard cremation coffin because they're worried about people will think, oh, they're doing it on the cheap.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't matter what other people think. Again, it comes down to it being your decision. People think they should have a limousine to follow the hearse because that's what you do. You should have a funeral car. No, if you've got your own cars and you feel fit to drive, save that money and drive your own car.
Yeah.
Limousines are expensive to hire. If you don't want one, don't have one. Get someone else to drive you. Order a taxi. It's a lot cheaper.
Yeah, because I think that obligation feeling that people might have might push them into a price bracket that they're not comfortable with.
Of course.
And I don't think any deceased person's going to be like, get yourself in serious debt for me and my funeral.
No,
I don't want you to be as safe as possible.
We don't want people to take on a debt that they can't afford. We don't want people to buy something they can't afford because they think they should, because they're worried about what other people might think. It doesn't matter what other people think. It's what you think. And I know I've had families say to me when they're looking at coffins and they'll say, oh, I know what my dad would say, choose the cheapest. And that's it.
Well, do that.
Think about it. Or put you in the green bin and things like that. You know what I mean? Funerals don't have to be expensive. They can be, but they don't have to be. If you work with the right funeral director and they honour your choices, then it doesn't have to be expensive. And as I said, there's the direct cremation option as well for people if they want that, or even direct burial option if you have a family grave. You don't have to go into church to have a service. You can have a service at the graveside, providing the weather's good, or you can have a burial service in the crematorium chapel and then be taken Because people think they have to go into church, which can cost them a couple of £100 to have a service in church. You don't have to do that.
No, you can have it literally anywhere, really, can't you? As long as there's space for the people. Okay, well, thank you so much for talking to me and answering all my funeral questions. I'll stop our recording and hope to speak to you again soon.
Okay.